Do you ever feel like you're stuck in the past or you can't let go because you're longing for the good old days? Have you heard someone tell you, just let go and let God, just move on, and though you really want to, you just don't know how to? Well, on today's episode of the Elena Natalia Show, we'll discuss some signs you may be living in the past, ways you can get past your past, and why it's important to stop looking back and to start moving forward.
Savior, you're all Savior, you're all you are all I need. You are all I need. Savior, you're all Savior, you're all you are all I need. You are all I need.
Hi, lovely friends. Welcome to the Elena and Natalia Show. We're your hosts. I'm Natalia Moranian. Hi, and I'm Elena Moranian. Today we'll be discussing Don't Look Back. And these words come straight from the Bible. It's an instruction from the Bible, don't look back. So we really want to delve deep into what it means to not look back. What are the practical steps to not looking back and how we can really move forward and to really examine, is there anything in your life that you need to let go of? Perhaps something that you're holding on that has prevented you from moving forward and experiencing the fullness that God has for you. So if you feel that, yes, maybe there is something I need to let go of, and this is the show for you. Right, it's truly a subject that many of us, including Christians, struggle with, but we are encouraged many times in the Bible to look forward, to look ahead, and to not look back. So before we get started with the Bible story, do you consider yourself as someone who focuses more on what happened, the past, or what will happen in the future? Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I'm definitely a reflective person. I consider myself analytical. I'm a thinker. So when I go through an experience, I tend to reflect a lot on what I said, what I could have done differently, what I should have done differently. So I definitely am prone to falling into the trap of looking back. So I would have to say this show, I'm definitely speaking to myself today in reminding myself that it's always God's will for us to move forward. So yeah, I'm typically the person who looks back, but I need to train myself to move forward and to dream about the future. Right. How about yourself? Well, I feel like I look back to the past short term, but look forward to the future long term. I am definitely more of a dreamer. Yeah, I love thinking of what my future holds, of who I'm going to spend my life with, of what's going to happen, and I'm definitely, as you would classify, you know, those radical dreamers who have these big dreams and big plans, and Ephesians 3:20 kind of I love girl. That. And I love it. It makes me happy thinking of all the good that God has in store. And you really inspire me. Thank you. Every time you dream, you not only speak life over yourself, but you also speak life over me. So your dreams, I love that they don't include just you in the picture. It's always includes me and other people as well, and I love that. Yeah, so thank you. And thank you for inspiring me to dream bigger and to hope for the future, for better things to come. Yeah, and that's ultimately the goal of this show. Like, it's important to reflect on the past, but as long as it's leading you to hope for the future, because some people look at the past and are completely hopeless regarding their future. But it's so important to have that hope, to have that expectation and that expectancy. But oftentimes we see how not hoping or holding on to the past leads you to a grim and dismal road, as we will learn in the Bible story of Lot's wife. Yes, Lot's wife. We will actually be discussing the story of Lot's wife today. It's found in the Old Testament in Genesis chapter 19. But to start off with, I'd like to start off in the New Testament in Luke chapter 17, verse 32, because Jesus actually tells his disciples to remember Lot's wife, which is, as I said, a reference to the Old Testament story about Sodom and Gomorrah found in Genesis chapter 19. So when Jesus says, remember Lot's wife, then this must be a story worth remembering, worth learning about, and worth taking advance heed to. Right. I feel like it's not only a command, but also a warning.
Yes.
And that makes me want to really delve deep. Who was Lot's wife?
Why
Who
should
was
we
this
remember
woman?
her?
Why should I remember her? What did she do? Was it for good or for bad?
Yes, and I found it interesting that when Jesus says, remember Lot's wife, he's talking to his disciples. He wasn't talking to the Pharisees. He wasn't even talking to the unbelievers. So it's important to state that this was a warning to Christians to remember Lot's wife. So let's delve deeper, and we invite you to listen on, even if you're not a Christian and you're just changing the channels or logging up online. I feel like this is an important topic that we can all learn from, to remember Lot's wife.
So, what stands out to me is the fact that she's called Lot's wife. First and foremost, where is her name? She's just referred to as Lot's wife, unnamed but remembered, and by these 3 words. Remember Lot's wife. I think I just repeated that, so if you don't remember what I just said, then rewind and re-listen. So if Jesus instructed his disciples to remember her story must be a story worth learning from, right?
Yes, and it's a setting, the story is found in Genesis chapter 19, and it's set in Sodom and Gomorrah, actually. And Sodom and Gomorrah, just to share the context if you're not familiar with it, were 2 cities that were filled with such detestable acts, vile acts, that God decided to destroy those 2 cities. And basically, it was full of sin, so much so that he wanted to rain down sulfur down on the city. However, the Lord was merciful, and before he did that, he warned Lot and his family.
Right, and before the cities were destroyed, the Lord was merciful enough to warn Lot, which was the nephew of Abraham, and his family to escape the coming doom.
Right, so I want to start off in Genesis chapter 19, verses 15 through 16. It says, at dawn the next morning, the angels became insistent. Hurry, they said to Lot, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here. Get out right now, or you will be swept away in the destruction of the city. When Lot still hesitated, the angels seized his hand and the hands of his wife and 2 daughters and rushed them to safety outside the city, for the Lord was merciful. And the word that struck me in this verse was hesitated. Lot still hesitated. So just imagine that, still hesitating, even though God says that there's going to be fire raining down on this city. What is there to hesitate about? But just putting myself in Lot's shoes, there's many times, God tells us to run away from this or that, and we still hesitate. So the fact that Lot hesitated, and I was just so shocked, how can Lot still hesitate even when he had that dire warning that God was going to destroy those 2 cities, and God is still trying to save him, and he had mercy on him. And it's good to note that, the angels rushed the family to safety, not because they were a perfect family or because of their good works or their righteousness, but simply because of the Lord's mercy.
So, right, if it was my family, I would have definitely grabbed all of them by the hand and said, we are going now. Let's move forward and not look back. I don't want fire and brimstone. Actually, just recently in the LA area, there was a lot of fire, Glendale, Burbank area. And so people were already evacuating. So imagine, actually, I did see a man on the roof of his house very close to the fire. So clearly he wasn't listening.
Evacuating.
But if it was me, we were ready to evacuate if God forbid something was happening, even voluntary evacuation. So the fact that he's saying there is going to be complete and utter destruction was room enough.
Right, not to say that the fire's in Glendale.
And to not hesitate. What is there to hesitate about?
If we're given the instructions to evacuate ASAP, you want to run to safety.
But it was in his mercy that he just sent rain within 24 hours of that happening. So thank you, Jesus, for the rain.
Yeah.
But this was a different story in the Bible.
And so it was because of God's mercy that they were saved. I love the Bible verse in Ephesians 2:8. It says, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God. So it really was the gift of God to warn Lot and his family. So why did Lot hesitate? Let's continue.
So there must have been a number of reasons which are kind of unfathomable to me at the moment, that he might have hesitated. Maybe comfort of his home. Maybe he didn't want to pack up everything. Well, maybe he had a lot of valuables and possessions that he wasn't willing to let go of. Either way, the angel came with stern and dire warnings that were really clear, And upon Elena doing the Bible study of it, in the comfort of our own home, we were able to really find 4 important keys that we feel you can apply today to the Don't Look Back series of the show. So
Right.
starting in Genesis 19:17, the angel says, "Run for your lives," the angels warned. "Do not stop anywhere in the valley and don't look back. Escape to the mountains or you will die."
I mean, as I was reading this verse 17, I had to reread it because
Right.
there was so much jam-packed revelation. Normally, when you hear the story about Lot's wife, oh, you think, okay, she turned into a pillar of salt. That's about
That's
it. Let's move on. But really, it's so much instruction, so much practical steps.
In detail.
And in detail. First, it was run for your lives. So the instruction wasn't, walk away from Sodom, bicycle away from Sodom, skip away, dance away from Sodom. It was run for your lives.
That shows the urgency of the matter. And when you run, I've never seen anyone who runs backwards.
That takes a true
Unless
talent.
you're on a specific tricycle, I don't know, but you run forwards. So there's a 2-part to running. You run away from something and towards another thing.
Yes. So what should we be running away from? What was Lot instructed to run away from? He was
Evil.
instructed to run away from Sodom, which in that context, Sodom was representing sin and evil. So practically, if the angel were to tell us to run for our lives, it would mean to run away from evil.
Right.
Run away from sin, run away from everything that so easily entangles. And actually, a thought that came to me, when you're running, you're not going to be running with a bunch of weight on you, because if that's the case, your running is going to be hindered. You're going to be running slower,
Right.
and you're going to become exhausted. And it reminds me of that verse when it says, "Let us run with endurance the race God has set before us." So strip off every weight that slows us down.
Right.
So if Lot even thought about running with all of his possessions or all of his things, that wouldn't have even been possible to escape in time.
Right. And also spiritually speaking, the weight that so hinders us is sin.
Yes.
Sin holds us back from running towards the future. Sin holds people in condemnation,
Yes.
in shame. And sin is really the factor that needs to be let go of in order to run freely into your future.
Yes, because when you're running to win the race, you're running with a mission, you're running with a focus. So the second instruction found in Genesis chapter 19, verse 17 was, do not stop anywhere in the valley. Unless, of course, you're a valley girl.
Oh my gosh. You know what I found out? I thought this whole time I lived in the valley. We're from
Is
Glendale.
Glendale in the valley?
I just looked it up. Glendale is not considered the valley. So though we're technically 818 girls, it's not the valley. And I don't talk like the valley. And
Oh,
it's
maybe.
Not, I don't know.
So we're called do not
Because
stop.
we don't want to stop in the valley.
know,
We're
do
going
not-
to the mountains where we live.
Yeah, go into the mountains. Do not stop anywhere in the valley. So what does the valley signify in this context? We know it doesn't signify 818 area code. In this
Sodom and Gomorrah.
context, I mean, we know that valley generally can have both positive and negative
true.
connotations. When Lot first settled, he settled in the Jordan Valley, which, was described to be fruitful and to have, plush plains and to be beautiful. But the valley in this context is representing Sodom, full of death and full of barrenness and no life. And in the desert, it signifies death and punishment and judgment. So basically, the angel is saying, do not stop in the valley. So generally speaking, in your life, what is the valley you have stopped in? Is there somewhere that you have stopped in that is keeping you? Because I never think that God would imagine that the valley is meant to be a permanent place in any of
Right.
our lives. And yes, it needs to be a place that we pass through temporarily, but definitely not a resting place. Because in order for Lot to get to the mountain, he had to first pass through the valley, but not stop there, not get stuck there.
And that's liberating because I've heard of when God has you in the valleys or in the mountaintops. And
Yes.
like you said, it's liberating to think that the valley isn't, permanent because you need a reprieve to get to the mountain.
Yes. The valley definitely isn't a permanent place, nor are we called to permanently be there, but there really is a danger in staying in a place where God is calling you to leave. That's why the first two instructions were run for your lives and do not stop anywhere in the valley. So one, if you're not running for your life away from sin, or two, you find yourself stuck in a place where God, just called a season and not the
Right.
destination, then it's time to reevaluate. So the third instruction from the angel was, and don't look back. And this is what we're focusing on today, is don't look back.
Thus the title of the
Yes, our Don't Look
sermons.
Back series.
series. Yeah, so the Hebrew word for looking back is pana.
Pana?
Pana.
Panera?
P-A-N-A-H. And it isn't simply glancing, it means paying attention to and considering.
So when Lot's wife looked back, it wasn't, oh, she got punished because she simply glanced or accidentally glanced. It was,
Oops.
oops,
My error.
Okay, it was because it wasn't a simple glance. It was because she was paying attention to, considering.
Considering is really giving it a second thought. It's having that time to reason in your head. Should I? Shouldn't I? And then you really make that decision to turn back or not. And she did.
Yes, so
That was a fatal mistake.
Yeah, don't look back to sin because danger is behind. Looking back causes delays. I mean, we're just talking about running. Have you ever seen a runner who's focused on winning the prize but is still glancing back? No, you see them running forward, moving forward. If they do look back, they're either going to delay, they're going to fall over, and they're not going to win the race, you know?
Right. So when it's called saying don't look back to Sodom and Gomorrah, technically, in today's day and age, it represents evil, sin, perversion, sexual immorality, pride, unbelief, and unholiness.
So I encourage you today to really ponder, what is your Sodom that you need to let go of, that you need to run away for your life from, that you need to, not stop anywhere in the valley. What is that Sodom that is technically in your life that, like the angel's instructions, he said to run away from and not to look back? So the next instruction, what was it?
It is escape
The
to
fourth instruction.
escape to the mountains or you will die.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Or you will die. So the mountains is a good spot to be. We're not valley girls, we're mountain girls.
Yes, I mean, in the weekend fire case, the mountains
Right,
weren't
the
necessarily a
fire was
good thing
there.
because the fires were there. But if we look at it in the sense of the fire of God falling on the mountain, then that's
But
good.
there's an interesting note that we have to pass through the valley to get to the mountains.
Wow.
And we may have to endure some challenging circumstances and fight some battles before you experience the mountaintop. So on their way to escaping, the valley was a test of preparation, I feel, in order to really enjoy the reward of being in the mountaintop where they would get a 360 aerial view of what they just escaped from.
So generally speaking, what do the mountains signify though? Because you hear Christians sometimes talking and say, I just feel like I had this mountaintop experience with God, or what season are you in? Are you in the valley or in the on the mountaintop? And everyone wants to say they're in the mountaintop because top experiences are moments and times where you encounter God's presence, or that's what they're referring to. And valleys are necessarily dry seasons where you feel distant or feeling like you're not hearing so well from the Lord. But the thing is, even in those valleys, God can encounter you, and not just on the mountaintop. But mountaintop experiences, I feel, are every time I choose to come to the Lord with a surrendered heart, not with any preconceived notions or ways I feel like He should answer me.
Right.
But times when I come to totally surrendered and expectant for Him to answer, to just be still. So it's really in those simple moments where I feel at peace in my
Right.
heart and in my mind, when I'm going about my day and just feeling His
Right.
presence. That's my mountaintop.
I feel like people think they need to do some outrageous thing in order to experience God's presence. They simply just need to be still. And,
Yes,
and
be still.
Being still is when you're able to fill yourself up with His presence. So that means you have to empty yourself of anything else that conflicts, which is first and foremost sin. God says, come as you are, but in His presence, you have to be able to come with a repentant heart. So for me, the mountaintop experience is being intimate with Him. It means sitting with my coffee.
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say
opening
that.
the Word. It's like those are some of the most enjoyable times for me, when I wake up in the morning and you brew the coffee and you look
Yeah.
outside and you look forward to that time spent with them. So that's what they're running towards too,
Right.
Lot and his family. And just in the beginning, when we're saying the fact that he hesitated, makes me wonder. It's like, God, may I never hesitate to run to you towards the mountain, even if that means experiencing a minute in the valley.
Right. So even in the Bible, mountains were used as places where God met with his people. For example, Noah's Ark settled on Mount
It's
Ararat,
true.
the mountain in Armenia.
The Armenian mountain.
Yes, and Abraham and Isaac on Mount Moriah, Moses and the Ten Commandments on Mount Horeb, Jesus taught on the Sermon of the Mount, Mount of Olives, and Mount Zion, and more. So all this to say that it's important for us to not stop in the valley, but to run to the mountain. Though valleys are temporary, we're not called to stop there.
I feel like it's a checkpoint, not a destination.
Yes.
So the warning in the last commandment, in the last warning was, escape to the mountains or you will die.
Those were the angel's last
That were the
instructions.
last words. So that is pretty scary to think about.
Or you will die.
Yeah. So what did that mean? It didn't mean a metaphorical sense. It meant a literal sense that death was to come if they disobeyed.
Right, in that sense, it was literal, escape to the mountains or you will die. But practically speaking, I feel like it's escape to God, escape to Jesus. Jesus is our mountain.
He's our life.
He is our Mount Zion. He is everything. If you don't have salvation in him, that's the warning, or you will die.
Right. The sin nature is ultimately what spiritually kills us before it physically kills us.
Sin causes death. So now we know the angels are calling Lot to escape. And the next verses are found in Genesis chapter 19, 18 through 22. And so Lot begged, "Oh no, my Lord." He said, "You have been so gracious to me and saved my life, and you have showed such great kindness, but I cannot go to the mountains. Disaster would catch up to me there, and I would soon die. See, there is a small village nearby. Please let me go there instead. Don't you see how small it is? Then my life will be saved." "All right," the angel said, "I will grant your request. I will not destroy the little village, but hurry, escape to it, for I can do nothing until you arrive there." Okay. So when I read this, I was like, what? I was confused. Is Lot confused? Why is he saying, please let me stop in this village nearby? The mountains are dangerous, because it was actually quite the opposite. The mountains are the safe place, and this village right near Sodom is the dangerous place. He wanted to stop in this little village known as Zor, which means little place. What did you think about those verses?
I mean, it was almost laughable
Yeah.
because as readers of the story, we can see it from hindsight. But, you know, for him, it was sad because he didn't realize that he was actually putting himself in more danger
Yeah.
by stopping in Zor, which was called the little place, which is really interesting.
and he was not
And
comfortable.
going to the big place, the big mountains.
He was not comfortable with going to the mountain. I asked myself why. Because he felt it was dangerous, so he stopped at the little place. I feel like many times God wants us to move forward, to not stop in the little place that we're so comfortable with. I feel like he was so comfortable with Sodom that he wanted to settle in this nearby village where to him that was his safe place. And this mountaintop where it was the true place of safety was actually uncomfortable because it was unfamiliar. But many times God is calling us to get out of our little place and to go to places which are not necessarily comfortable, but 100% safe.
I think in a way it also showed his distrust of even God and the angel's commandments, that if he's in this little village, at least if the destruction doesn't happen, then he can go back and collect his possessions. And he's closer to it than if he were to run to the mountains. It was almost this lukewarm space.
It's
hot or
almost-
cold.
Yeah, exactly. Very lukewarm. It's almost like saying, I'm going to go on a diet, but please just keep this box of donuts in my refrigerator just in case, I get this craving.
Oh my
he's
goodness,
putting,
that's temptation.
Yeah, he's putting himself in the place of danger. But the angel, allowed him to stay in that little place and still was gracious to him, even in Lot's ignorance, so to say.
Right, it was ignorant, but
How many times are we like that too? Because we're
many
so
times, yeah.
comfortable with this small place, with what we're used to, that we don't want to venture out, that we think God's instructions to us are dangerous instead of safe, when
Right.
our familiarity is actually the
almost-
danger zone.
It's almost like he couldn't accept the too good to be true offer, that he had to settle for the less. And many times we don't believe we're worthy also to receive the better that God has for us. But also in this circumstance, I truly believe it
He was
because
comfortable.
he was comfortable in his comfort zone.
Yes, because he thought what was safe was actually dangerous, and what was dangerous was actually safe. So how close could he stay to the fire without getting burned, so to speak?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And he was playing with fire.
Literally playing with fire.
So now we get to the exciting part of the story as if it wasn't already
I know, oh my
exciting
gosh.
and full of
It's
this
interesting
action drama.
because when I first read this story, you generally look at it, Lot's wife was told not to look back and she looked back.
That's
so
all.
she turned into a pillar of salt. That's all. But when you sit down to really analyze and to read this Bible verse, wow, there was so much instruction.
Right.
That's why we're like, we need to do 2 parts on this.
And that's what's beautiful about reading the Bible.
Yeah.
Sorry to get off topic, but when you really just delve deep into it, the revelation comes alive.
Right.
So like you said, read it several times until the words
God
just
speaks to you.
revelation just jumps out of the pages for you. So we're continuing in Genesis 19:23 to 26. Lot reached the village just as the sun was rising over the horizon. Then the Lord rained down fire and burning sulfur. How scary.
I know.
From the sky on Sodom and Gomorrah. He utterly destroyed them, along with the other cities and villages of the plain, wiping out all the people and every bit of vegetation. Verse 26 says, but Lot's wife looked back as she was following behind him, and she turned into a pillar of salt. Oh my gosh. This
Pillar
has
of salt.
This is a dilemma. Actually, it's the end of it. But
So she became a salty woman because she was salty, so to speak.
I've heard of that. She's salty.
I
That
know.
means bitter,
Yeah,
angry.
bitter,
or-
angry. I don't know why, but when
She must have been angry for leaving the past. That's why
First-
she turned back and
Yeah.
bam, that happened.
First of all, I think, why? How did you turn back? How did you look back? Your only instruction was not to look back. How could you do that? But she did. But then again, how many times do we look back? And we're so guilty of that
Right.
at times too. And it's just reading the stories really sheds light not only onto their story, but how our hearts are feeling as well. And so she looked back. And then second, I think she turned into a pillar of salt. I imagined why. Why a pillar of salt? What is it about salt that she would have to turn into salt? It could have been a pillar of anything. But we'll speak about
vegetables.
pillar of vegetables, a pillar of fruit, I don't know, a pillar of salt.
Or just
which
back to dust.
one of my theories is because at that time, as I've said before, salt was used as a preserver. And so pillar of salt is to preserve her memory, to remember what she
Exactly.
did wrong so that we could remember what to do right.
It's the most literal metaphorical representation.
Yes.
To this day.
Yes.
I feel.
And we don't really have much information about Lot's wife. We don't even know her name, who she was, except for the fact that, she was Lot's wife. Right. She was a mother to 2 daughters, and she was probably rich and a woman of influence. But we know that she made the grave and fatal mistake of disobedience. She looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. And we are told by Jesus in the New Testament to remember this particular lady, unnamed. We don't know what she looks like. All we know is she looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt.
So technically we're called to remember to forget the past.
Yes. Wow. Call to remember
To forget the past.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this week on the Elena Natalia Show.
We have so much more to talk about, so please join us next week for part 2 continuation of our Don't Look Back series.
Yes, please do. We will further talk about the signs that you are living in the past and why looking back is wrong, and also practical steps to moving forward.
Also, our friends, you can look forward to a brand new question from one of our viewers, which will be answered by us on our Ask Elena and Natalia segment.
We also invite you to connect with us on our social media platforms at Elena Natalia TV. We look forward to your comments, your feedback, suggestions, or encouragement.
And also find us at our website at elenaandnatalia.tv. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and catch us next week for part 2.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Love and
Bye.
blessings. Bye.